word Eldorado means the golden one. It was the name given to a mythical city, a place so beautiful, so impossibly perfect, that entire expeditions were launched to find it, and none ever returned with proof that it existed. For decades, Cadillac borrowed that name and wore it on some of the most culturally significant automobiles ever produced in America. Then they stopped. For 25 years, the Eldorado simply ceased to exist. No announcement, no farewell, no ceremony worthy of what it had been. And now, in a decision that has divided Cadillac's own engineering team between those who believe it is the most important thing the brand has ever attempted and those who quietly worry it may be too much, the Eldorado has returned. The 2027 Cadillac Eldorado is here, and the conversation it is starting in the automotive world is one that will not settle quickly. This is Premium Automotive Reviews, the channel where we go past what a car costs and what it claims and into what it actually means, for driving, for culture, and for the idea of what American luxury should look like when it decides to take itself seriously. The Eldorado demands exactly that level of attention, and there is one engineering decision buried inside this car's development story that Cadillac has not fully explained to the press. A choice about how power is delivered that changes the entire emotional character of the vehicle in a way that numbers alone will never capture. We will reach it. But first, this car needs to be understood from the outside, because the outside is where this story begins. Stand in front of the 2027 Eldorado, and what registers first is not a single design detail. It is the color. Cadillac calls it Crimson Velocity Red, but that name is inadequate. This paint is alive. In direct Florida sun, it is almost overwhelming. Deep, saturated, three-dimensional, as though the surface of the car is generating its own light rather than reflecting the sky above it. It shifts between cherry and ruby and something darker depending on the angle. And it does this continuously as the car moves, as you move around it, as clouds pass overhead. This is not a color chosen from a palette. It is a position statement. It says that subtlety has its place, and this is not it. The body itself is a two-door Grand Touring coupe of genuine proportions. Not a sports car crouching low to the ground, but a long, wide, authoritative machine that carries its mass with the effortless composure of something that was designed to own a road rather than attack it. The hood is vast and sculpted, rising slightly at center to suggest what lives beneath it without announcing anything directly. The art and science headlights run vertically down the face of the car in razor-cut LED formations that read as both modern and unmistakably Cadillac. Graphic, precise, and sharp enough to feel architectural at night. The Cadillac crest sits centered in the wide mesh grille at exactly the right height, neither tucked low nor perched high. Simply present with the confidence of something that does not need to compete for attention. Moving to the rear, the Eldorado makes its most dramatic visual statement. Vertical LED taillights frame a wide, flat tail panel with the Cadillac name spelled out in individual chrome letters beneath the crest, above an Eldorado badge in a slightly smaller typeface. Below that, a full carbon fiber diffuser structures the lower rear section, with 4 rectangular exhaust outlets arranged in pairs on each outer edge. The wheels are forged dark multi-spoke alloys with a radial spoke density that creates visual mass from a distance and reveals intricate spoke architecture up close. They fill the arches completely. The car sits on them with the settled, composed stance of a machine that has already calculated exactly how much road contact it needs. Open the door, and the first thing you notice is the weight of it. Not heavy in the way of old American cars. Heavy in the way of something engineered to isolate precisely, to seal the outside world away with intention. The door closes with a sound that is almost entirely mechanical, a deep, solid report that communicates structural integrity rather than just mass. Then the cabin closes around you, and the outside world simply stops. The interior of the 2027 Eldorado is built in a color scheme that mirrors the exterior. Deep crimson leather covers the seats, the door panels, and the lower dashboard in a quilted diamond pattern with contrast stitching in a shade slightly lighter than the base. Carbon fiber trim runs across the upper dashboard, and the center console in a weave fine enough to read as a textile rather than a structural material. The steering wheel is wrapped in the same crimson leather with a flat bottom section, and the Cadillac crest embossed at the 12 o'clock position. The seating position is low and enveloping without being restrictive. You sit in the Eldorado rather than on it, the bolsters holding the torso with enough firmness to communicate sport, without crossing into the kind of aggressive lateral support that makes a car uncomfortable on a 2-hour drive. The panoramic display architecture stretches across the full width of the dashboard in a single curved surface. Driver instrument cluster on the left, central infotainment system on the right, separated visually by a chrome bar that runs as a continuous horizontal element across the entire fascia. The system runs Cadillac's latest AI-assisted platform, which in the 2027 Eldorado has been given capabilities beyond any previous iteration. It reads the driver's biometric data through the steering wheel, tracks fatigue indicators in real time, and can proactively adjust the seat, climate, ambient lighting, and suspension character before the driver consciously registers the need for any change. This is not driver assistance in the traditional sense. This is the car actively managing the quality of the experience, rather than simply responding to inputs. It learns. Over weeks of ownership, it builds a profile so accurate that the car begins to feel less like a tool being operated and more like an environment that has been personalized to its owner at a cellular level. The sound when it starts is the detail that Cadillac's communications team has been most careful about. The 2027 Eldorado is powered by a supercharged twin-turbocharged V8 architecture, rear-wheel drive, 10-speed dual-clutch transmission, and an internally targeted output that Cadillac's performance division is describing only as their most powerful road-going engine program to date. At idle, the note is deep and unhurried, a low-pressure wave that you feel in the seat base and the floor before you hear it with your ears. It is the sound of an engine that is barely bothering. At partial throttle in city traffic, it settles into a composed, almost polite mechanical baritone. But open the throttle, genuinely open it, and the character transforms entirely. The supercharger whine builds in the high register, while the exhaust note drops lower and becomes something that is less a sound and more a physical event. Windows in nearby buildings register it before nearby pedestrians consciously process what they are hearing. The sound of this engine at full acceleration is not loud in the way of something unrefined. It is loud in the way of something that has earned the right to be. The transmission is where Cadillac made the engineering decision that divided its own team, rather than the paddle shift dual clutch configuration that the performance data would suggest. The 2027 Eldorado was engineered with a deliberate bias towards smoothness over maximum theoretical acceleration. The dual clutch operates in a mapping that prioritizes torque continuity over shift speed, meaning that in normal and sport driving modes, the transitions between ratios feel more like a traditional automatic in their seamlessness than the rifle crack shifts typical of dual clutch systems in sport configurations. The decision was intentional and internally contested. The engineers who won the argument believed that the Eldorado's identity is not a track machine. It is the fastest Grand Tourer Cadillac has ever built, and Grand Tours should feel effortless rather than urgent. The engineers who lost the argument believed a car producing this level of output deserves transmission behavior that matches its mechanical capability. Both sides had a point. What Cadillac chose was character over metrics, and on a long coastal highway, that choice is correct in every way. The first time you move this car, the first moment the torque loads the rear axle and the nose rises fractionally as the drivetrain tightens against the road, is a clarifying experience. The steering is hydraulically assisted, a decision that in 2027 requires explanation. Almost every performance car at this price point has moved to electric steering assistance for efficiency and programmability. Cadillac went hydraulic deliberately for the Eldorado, accepting the fuel efficiency compromise in exchange for the weight and texture of feedback that only hydraulic systems deliver. The result is a steering wheel that talks. At low speed, it is reassuringly weighted and direct. As speed builds, the feedback through the rim increases, the road surface communicating in graduated increments of texture and grip that allow the driver to understand exactly what the front tires are doing without needing to look at any instrument. The suspension is adaptive magnetic damping, with a recalibration specific to the Eldorado's weight distribution and wheelbase. In its most comfortable setting, expansion joints and rough pavement are absorbed with a composure that luxury sedan buyers expect, and sports car drivers are occasionally surprised to find in a car this capable. In sport mode, the same platform transforms into something that communicates body motion precisely. The Eldorado does not eliminate roll but controls it, letting the car speak through chassis lean while maintaining the kind of composure that builds genuine driver confidence over time. Internally projected pricing positions the 2027 Eldorado in the range of $175,000 to $195,000 depending on specification. That is a significant commitment, and it requires a moment of honest consideration. What that number represents is not simply engineering. It is Cadillac's declaration that American luxury deserves to compete at the highest level the global automotive market can define, not by following the formula that European manufacturers have established, but by writing a new one. The Eldorado does not feel like a car that was designed to match anything. It feels like a car that was designed to make the category around it feel smaller. Compare it against the most capable German Grand Tourers, and the Eldorado wins on emotional presence and loses fractionally on chassis feedback refinement. Compare it against purpose-built American performance machines, and the Eldorado wins on livability and loses nothing in outright capability that the road can realistically access. Compare it against anything wearing an Italian badge in this price range, and the Eldorado offers more daily usability, comparable drama, and a cultural identity that feels specific rather than borrowed. This car was built for a specific kind of person, not the buyer who wants the fastest lap time or the most recognizable badge. The buyer who has driven enough cars to know that the feeling of a great machine matters more than its ranking in a published comparison. Someone who understands that presence and composure are more difficult to engineer than raw output, and who recognizes that a car with genuine character is rarer than a car with a higher horsepower figure. Very few automobiles in any generation manage to carry the weight of a legendary name while simultaneously earning it entirely on their own terms. The 2027 Cadillac Eldorado does exactly that, and the fact that it does so while looking like this, sounding like this, and driving like this makes it one of the most significant things to emerge from an American manufacturer in a very long time. Subscribe to Premium Automotive Reviews if this kind of depth matters to you, and leave us your answer to this question in the comments. Should Cadillac have made the Eldorado the most technologically extreme car in its class? Or does choosing character over metrics make it more significant? There is no obvious right answer, and that is exactly why we want to hear yours. The Eldorado was never just a car. It was always a belief that American luxury deserved to be legendary, and the 2027 version makes that belief feel current, earned, and completely alive.